Welcome back, everyone. I'm Electric. Here again with me is FC Racers, and welcome to Day 2 of PACE. Day 1 was pretty awesome, don't you think?
Oh, man. It was par for the course of everything to come. I am looking forward to Day 2. It was crazy. I mean, like, we had some wildness in Celeste. That Super Mario 64 race was absolutely nuts.
Man.
Oh, my gosh.
Just in case you missed it, we actually have a highlight reel for all of you, so you can go ahead and experience some of the top moments. So let's go ahead and do that Day 1 recap video.
Certainly strange. All right, here we go. This is what I'm looking for. Awake and with the sync. Let's go. So this is where that movement we were talking about is really going to come into play. There's no hazards here. You really just have to have absolute solid movement. And look at this from both runners. Oh my gosh, let's go.
Yeah, just absolutely synchronized here, skipping over those boost platforms to avoid losing
corner
speed.
boost there too. Wow, look at this, you guys. Oh my God.
Man,
no, let's
near
go.
perfect sync going into resort. Now
going right back. I waved at the monitor like an idiot. I did.
Sushi, meanwhile, looking at the camera with a disgusted look.
I think it's because he saw I said I waved at the monitor instead of waving at. See, I feel like he's looking into my soul right now. I'm being judged.
The viewers at home probably feeling the same way. A very, very stable face. The quick switches in the back room. Somebody having a lot of fun.
And it's like if you're gonna have an underwater section, have the music go and compensate for that too.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2019. You got to put that detail in at this point.
It's just like it makes you feel more immersed into the game. All right, here we go. Battle in Boost City.
No pun intended on immersed.
Yep, no pun intended.
To be able to get that 1:00 time.
Easy. Absolutely crushed the 1:00. And if not for timing or for some mistakes in that Bowser's Kingdom, we could be looking at something like a 1:00 0x pace, but instead Chaos is going to be getting a 1:00.23 as the final time.
Winning his first race here at PACE, and we'll see what points he will exactly get, but that is one of the strongest starts possible going onto this final brick, and I'm not sure if he can still get that 1:00 time. It might be barely out of reach, or maybe he just barely still got it. He actually will still get it. Yep, looks good. I think this might be a 59.
I think he's just barely going to squeeze that 1:00
Look at Strava's. Yep. Oh, okay. I mean, he was a little bit critic right there. I'm not sure if it was a 59 or a 1:01 flat, but I think he's happy with this one for sure, getting the first win here off of Nick.
Bribe Lakitu a little bit.
Luigi
and D whatever, both electing to have that chat with Lakitu, sliding a couple of coins.
It's definitely ticking. Well, actually, not so much. Got time stopped.
The
backflip strats from D whatever outsmarted the thwomp. Oh my god, I've never seen that in my life. Busting out the secret strats, D whatever. Ready for anything. Feeling himself.
All right.
One more for Cheese and 3 clean ones.
Very nice.
Going against
very
his
nice.
average. Very nice from Cheese. But the timer is ticking. Every 10 seconds is another point in Cheese's pocket. Crazy. Punke was dominating the league. Absolutely dominating the league. But here in his first race, Cheese takes the W, switching out his controller, using the Hori mini pad. It's just a little bit cleaner.
What a set of races.
Yeah,
honestly.
that was pretty crazy.
And
all the Celeste syncs.
Oh, man.
So good. So satisfying, man.
Especially, we went back and looked, and I think it was that race 1, Tej and Sushi were 2 frames apart going into Summit.
Yeah,
that was just insane.
That is so crazy.
And meanwhile, some of those SM64 races, that save from D whatever, that backflip under the thwomp.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. The crowd was going absolutely nuts. That was playing out of his mind there.
Yeah, just really, really strong, consistent gameplay in order to take that from Ouija. And, of course, with SMO, that nice upset from Stravos over Nicro. That was pretty awesome to see.
Yeah, and then also, like, Chaos Pringle, like, what, 2 minutes ahead of his competitor?
Yeah, it was like a 1:00.23. Getting a 1:00 is just really awesome in a race.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep, so we do also have the stats to go ahead and show you guys for the current standings. So for Celeste, TGH from Noble Esports is in first place with 4 points due to that 3-0 win against Msushi, followed by Fladervy with 3 points due to the 2-1 win, and TriKitty with 1 point due to taking a game off Flad. Msushi, unfortunately, in 4th place at the moment with 0 points, but could certainly turn that around today. Now, in Odyssey, Chaos Pringle with 78 points due to that awesome finish with Stravos at 65, with the win and a nice time. Necroveda with a pretty decent, I think he got a 101 in the race, so coming out with 25 points over Little Curb's 12. So we may see these standings change a little bit today as well, though. And of course, in SM64, she's in the lead from Counter Logic Gaming with 64 points due to that low 49. D whatever following right behind with a 62 point. With Ouija at 28 points. Pretty nice finish from him despite the loss. And Punke, unfortunately, with a 26 points. But you know something? That was with a 50 of a run. So that's pretty wild that getting a 50 means you're in 4th place at the start of these point standings. And so now we can see, of course, Fladervy preparing with that laser focus. Msushi, meanwhile, a little bit relaxed, showing off that photogenic side.
He's getting ready for more clips and more highlights for the Day 2 recap. You can already tell.
Yeah, trying to maximize his screen time, showing us how to drink water today.
Yep.
And we can now go ahead and see the practice gameplay. Vlad actually practicing Golden Ridge, which is a stage in the game. Meanwhile,
Msushi is going for the ice skip
in core, which you don't see in any percent since it's post-game. So pretty interesting practice choices. I guess if you're just trying to practice really high-speed movement, that could be a bit of a...
I mean, a good reverse hyper into Ultra and then, like, just carrying it all the way through. So I want to see if he's going to go for it or not. Maybe.
He was messing around with it earlier when he was practicing off stage.
And, of course, if you're curious, this strat is actually a part of ARB, where you basically... What you're supposed to do is go all the way to the right, and then you're going to change the scene from hot to cold, which allows you to get this barrier that's over on the left side of the screen. And this actually lets you bypass that altogether. And it saves a good amount of time.
Yeah, it's like the two sets of fireballs that are moving alternate each other. It just happens that when you have the speed from this block, kind of, when you step on this block, it does a weird like bounce type animation. And when it comes back up, it gives you speed. And so by doing the hypers afterwards, you're able to carry that speed over to the left room, and it just so happens that the way the cycle starts out, and with the speed you have, you go right through the alternating fireballs. It's really cool to see. And it looks like we've got a nice file name meme of bruh moment. All right. Quality memes. I think the commentators did get filled in on a couple of the other choices for later today.
Yeah.
So
All right, here we
exciting.
go.
And here we go. The first race of Day 2 of PACE is off to the races.
So again, we are back at Prologue here. It's a nice little introduction to the game to get the player familiar with the controls and all the abilities. And also, we have the nice old lady that's laughing at you because she thinks that you're going to really try to climb this mountain. Madeline's not really thrilled about that. She's like, how dare you mock me? But as we see from the intro with the bridge collapsing, it's not as easy as it's going to seem.
Right, and you don't see these guys dashing there because the dash is actually disabled until that crow tells you that you can dash right in the end. And so now we'll actually be seeing the full-fledged movement that makes this just such a great speed game. So City, a pretty tame level overall. The speed tech that you use is a little bit complicated, especially for a casual player, but compared to the stuff that comes later in this game, this is effectively a cakewalk. You don't really expect to see a huge lead develop here unless someone accidentally takes a death on one of these spike platforms. It's really just about optimizing your momentum, making use of corner boosts wherever you can to get Madeline's speed higher and maintain it at that high rate. So one thing that's weird about this game compared to other platformers and just other games generally is there's no real hard speed cap on Madeline's speed. And so by using techniques like corner boosting, you're able to build up ridiculous amounts of speed beyond what you're ever intended to do casually.
Yeah, and you'll see a few nice instances of that later on in the game. Most will be in Chapter 5 when we come up to the Yeet. And then Chapter 6 during the battle and boost. You'll really get to see just how fast we're able to just have Madeline fly through the stage here.
Oh, and Vlad, unfortunately, not able to get his boost all the way up on top of the mountain. So Sushi is going to be walking away with a 1 second or so lead. 133 for Prologue in Chapter 1. Oh, actually 3 seconds. Wow. Vlad eating some decent time loss, but of course, still the very opening of the run, there are a lot more opportunities to lose even probably double that amount of time just in one trick failing.
All right, so now we are moving into Old Site here. The runners are trying to check this old ancient place out. And they're going to come across this nice little mirror here.
And like we were talking about yesterday, the OST of this game is magnificent, and this stage, in my opinion, is one of the top examples. Like,
absolutely,
the ambience at the beginning, and once you actually activate these dream blocks here, which if you've never played the game casually, the thing that this game does that's really cool is each level kind of has a new gimmick item, if you will, that gets added in. And just about all of them actually make use of Madeline's dash mechanic in some way. So in this case, you're dashing into the block, and it carries your dash all the way through. And you're going to be seeing these guys take some somewhat precise angles through a couple of these blocks, because if you hit a wall on the other side, you instantly die. And so what you're trying to do is, in some cases where like the game is trying to get you to zigzag all the way through dream blocks, you're trying to optimize your angle to be able to skip a couple of those entrances and exits. And the other thing is you're actually able to hyper dash out of a dream block, which you're going to see a lot more in the final chapter of the game.
Sushi taking it up here in this final long room here. It's going to allow Flad to catch up a little bit, maybe even take the lead here.
Yeah, it looks like they're about synced, but the in-game timer gives it away. So Flad with about a 3-second lead that he may have just eaten due to that kind of weird movement bobble there. Not sure exactly what happened. I guess he just landed on the platform that he thought he was going to go through and was trying to like do the fast dive.
All right, so now we're moving into the awake portion. Now again, with this section here, there's no real hazards or anything that's going to cause a death, but the terrain is very uneven, so the runners are going to try to do their best to, 1, avoid any obstacles such as these springs, but 2, maintain as much speed as possible. And so far, both runners are doing a pretty good job there. A little bump on Msushi's part, but that's all right. And they're both flying out here. Msushi with a 329 and Flat with a 325, so we now have a lead change.
Vlad with that 4-second lead. Nice. That's really what you want going into the Celestial Resort, the Grand Budapest Hotel of the game, I'd have to say. And this is where things really start to heat up. The kind of gimmick here is due to the hotel's state of disrepair, you have all these dust bunnies floating around that are instant death if you touch them. And inside the hotel in particular, they're going to get pretty thick. Now, in case you haven't seen a run of the game before and you didn't watch the ones yesterday, there is a big trick coming up towards the very end of this level called Demo Dash, where you do a pixel-perfect dash through one of these sets of dust bunnies, and you're able to get through what looks like an impenetrable wall due to the way it's constructed. So we'll talk about that in more detail when it's actually on screen, so it'll make more sense. But that trick alone can lose plenty of time, as Flad taking that dash right into the dust bunny, not able to get the boost out just over him.
Okay, I don't know what that was.
Yeah, something just came over the announcement
of the announcement bar. We're like, that wasn't any of us talking. All right, so now, there we go. Then we can get the second key here and get ready to go to the huge mess portion of the stage. Aptly named, as you will see. It's just a hoarder's dream come true / cleaning person's nightmare.
So the ghostly bellboy Oshiro here has kind of left the resort in a state of disrepair, and included in that is this main room. But one benefit of him leaving all this junk everywhere is it gives us a lot of corners to corner boost off of. So. All
right, so we're having, nothing on stream, but just here at the event, we have some audio battles going on here.
Yeah, it seems someone wanted to listen to some men at work in the middle of the race. I can't say I blame them. Oh, wait, no, that was a Loverboy working for the weekend. Okay.
Yep.
I know my 80s pop songs, I swear.
All right, so now we have Msushi heading into books here in Flat, just finishing up crates. So every time that we hit those weird jelly blocks, we're going to remove a section from Huge Mess, as you see here. And the fun thing about this is you can actually go any of these rooms in any order. We have a particular route where we go crates, books, then towels. And the reason for that is once we exit, Oshiro is as close as possible, which allows us to quickly move to the next section. There is a variant if you run, I think it's ARB and possibly all hearts, where you actually run, towels first, and then books, and then crates. But that's a whole different shebang there. So, but it does give you the option, and it does change the terrain a lot.
Oh yeah, because as you can see, there are shared elements throughout all of these subsections. So anything you remove first is going to change the other two subsections. And in particular, I believe either just a secret or actually one of the hearts is hidden by towels or something in one of the other areas. It's it's kind of interesting, especially like the route to get to the Crystal Heart is really interesting.
Yes.
And so now you see Sushi going up the elevator shaft here, making his way up to the presidential suite that Oshiro wants to show you for being such a great-looking customer. I can't say great customer because you haven't bought anything from him. So, but Sushi is going to be coming up on that demo dash here. So, the way that the hitboxes on these Dust Bunnies work, they're actually, the hitbox is a bit smaller than the Dust Bunnies would let on. And so what looks like this impenetrable wall here actually has a small gap. And Msushi getting that first try demo dash, which is very nice. Going to go ahead and wait just a second for the cycle. You see a lot of runners going for task cycle in this next room. And so good on him to make the decision to go ahead and try to save that time. Vlad making a mistake that prevents him from even trying out task cycle. So no death in this race. Pretty nice to see. A little bit uncommon in these Celeste runs. Seems that people are so excited about getting demo dash that they go for that task cycle and just go ahead and eat the time loss.
All right, so now we are in the Oshiro chase. After showing the presidential suite and Madeline just not really pushing it home that she doesn't want to stay here, Madeline comes out and pretty much says some pretty harsh things about the hotel to Oshiro, and he's not really happy about it. So he's trying to basically devour Madeline, like just like that.
Sushi taking a death. Oh.
And as you see, a bolt of white light flies through, and then Oshiro does a nice, just straight ahead attack. And all the runners are basically trying to avoid that, but in addition, we got, oh my gosh, okay.
Yeah,
that was super scary.
Yeah, not sure what on earth was going on with his patterns there. And ended up losing a decent amount of time just to having to wait for the Oshiro slowdown. So the closer that Madeline is vertically on the screen to Oshiro's position, the more the game will actually slow down to like emphasize that he's getting really close to you. Like the more the colors fade into black and white, the more time loss you've incurred.
We're seeing Msushi having just a little bit of a hang up there on this first screen here.
Yeah, moving into Golden Ridge, which casually, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, this is probably my most hated level. The wind mechanics are just so rough to deal with.
Yeah. I think it's just because people are not, they don't realize that if you use the dash mechanic, it'll allow you to get through. The game does kind of show you a little bit, especially when you get towards the end of the level, where basically walking is impossible to advance, so you just really have to rely on this dash mechanic to get through this spot. From a speedrunner standpoint, I feel like this is the most technical area of the game, just because every single screen has an opportunity to just like save so much time, and if you mess up, it'll quickly add up on you. Like we have an auto scroller coming up, and if you fail that, you're looking at like a 5 or 6 second loss.
Yeah, and that's huge, especially like at this point in the run, not even a third of the way through. Now we did have looked like a double Archie, so shout outs to that.
Archie, one of the latest techs to come into the Celeste speedrun. I'm still thinking about the Oshiro chase there.
And Vlad with that really nice dash from the movement block as Sushi going to be finishing up this later room.
I love that strat that Sushi just pulled off. Fladervy is going to go for that as well here. He's going to do a reverse hyper into the next room and allows him to skip this first bubble and just barely,
and just barely missed the second one in his case, it seems. Yeah, and of course, taking that time to go back to do that reverse would take just too long as opposed to just taking the casual strat. So I think we should probably elaborate a little bit on hypers, reverse hypers, and such like that. So one thing, hyper dashing is a mechanic that the game has and is intended because it talks about it in the very last level.
Yep.
But isn't referenced earlier than that. So when you crouch while holding a direction and dashing, you get a lot more momentum than just holding a direction and dashing. If you want to try it at home, just hold down and right and dash, and try that right after a right hand dash, and you'll immediately see the huge difference. And being able to chain them together, like doing one of those dashes and then getting your dash back and then leaving the ground and doing a dash in the air would be an extended hyper. And if you want to elaborate a little bit on like the ultras and reverse ultras and such.
Yeah, and so with the ultras there, basically what you're going to do is you're going to chain the hypers together. So we might see one here on Vlad's screen a little bit. And basically the speed kind of stacks on top of itself over and over again. Like here we go. Just really quickly getting into the next screen. A good place actually, if you do want to try to practice this, is after you finish the game and go into prologue. There's a little section where you can just kind of you'll see the difference if you try to do like an ultra versus a hyper dash from down forward. And so we got this last section here. Flat's going to clock in. It looks to be like a 2:48.
Yeah, and Sushi giving him just a moment to go ahead.
A little breather, taking a little sip of water as we get ready to go into the Mirror Temple. Now, this one is probably the most unique approach to the 80% because we actually do 2 Chapter 5 levels here. So the way that the game is designed is if you clear any level within a chapter, you will automatically unlock the next one. So you can choose to do 5A, or you can do the B side, and if you beat either of those, you'll advance to Chapter 6. We have discovered that you can actually get the tape in 5A and then complete 5B faster than just going through 5A by itself. So that has become the standard for the higher level of the 80% run. I would say from 35 minutes to world record time is when you'd want to start incorporating 5B into your run.
Oh yeah, because it's so much faster. And what's funny is it just wasn't realized that, oh, Msushi with the unfortunate yeet. That's really what you hate seeing there. And Vlad also just, the yeet is not strong with these gentlemen today.
We are yeetless in Laurel Park today.
Yeah, what a tragedy. F's in the chat for the yeets that just never were. Yeah, so for a long time, no one actually bothered to check if the B-sides would actually complete and unlock the next chapters. And so when that was first discovered, all the timing that took place indicated that 5B and 6B were the only ones that would actually be faster in runs. But it was only by a couple of seconds, and you'd have to play the B-side totally perfectly, which people were like, But then another little trick came around that you're going to see on Msushi's screen in a little bit called Bub's Drop. And
yeah, so before, the way that you would optimize this is that at the end, you would have to do a corner boost that was very risky. And I believe there were a handful of runners that only went for this. And I know off the top of my head that Rolucian did that, and also Black Pear 420 did that as well. There were some others too. I apologize because I don't remember who else was doing it. But then Bub's Drop came about, and it just became the standard for 80%. So we're going to see Msushi go here first, lining up and getting it.
Nice first try. Okay, so that probably looks really strange. What happens there is he just did a 2-frame window wall bounce. And Vlad getting it first try, very, very nice. In yesterday's set, one of the races, Vlad actually lost a try, probably over losing a minute to 6 failed Bub's drops. So
yeah, so that's a huge confidence boost right there. Just getting that out the park, and it's like, well, I know I can do this first try. I don't have to. That's another thing that's just like off my list of worrying about.
Yep. So the way that works is you do a wall bounce that you have a 2-frame window for, and since this game runs at 60 FPS, that's 1/30th of a second. And after that wall bounce, you immediately hold down, and it kills all your momentum going up into that area, and it allows you to drop back below the platform before you get over it, and it's a one-way platform. So what that results in is you just re-entered the screen from an entrance you were never supposed to re-enter the screen from. And whenever you die and the game tries to restore you from a checkpoint, it's like you didn't come from the original entrance, so I guess you must have come from the right side entrance. And if you're not familiar with the layout of this B-side, you're normally supposed to go off to the left and go pick up a red bubble to ride all the way through the right side. But by doing this, you save, like, I think it's 15, 20 plus seconds.
Yeah.
And so that trick made B-side so much more worth it for at least Chapter 5. Chapter 6, even today, the B-side is technically 2 seconds faster, but it's the same situation 5B used to be in, where you would have to play totally perfectly, and 6B is brutal.
Yes. 6B is... I don't really want to try to go play it again, to be quite honest. It's like, I'm like, yeah, I don't really want to do this anymore.
Yeah, if you thought the Battle and Fight was bad, imagine the B-side version of the Battle and Fight. Just no.
And then the ravine section, too, where you're just, like, free-falling, and it's like... any false move is just instant death.
Yeah, it's wild.
So we're Vlad heading into the impossible room.
Yep. Not quite so, it seems, as Sushi also making his way through. So Vlad with a nice few seconds of a lead coming out of Mirror Temple. But no significant time losses from either runner here, which is honestly pretty uncommon and great to see.
I do like that both of them decided to use Theo to break the heart instead of having Madeline run through it.
Yeah, so you can't actually dash when you're holding Theo, which that was the mechanic of Mirror Temple. Like, at first, they have the red bubbles that you can ride and those dashing platforms and the Seekers. But in that back half of Mirror Temple, when you find Theo encased in the crystal, you use him for a lot of different puzzles since he's technically invincible, I think, except for falling off of the screen. But you can't actually dash while holding Theo, and so it's just a little choice you can make on the very end there as far as what you break the barrier with. Both of them getting leg skip really easy, which we should probably also talk a little bit about because this mechanic is used a lot. Sushi with that unfortunate death, just not quite getting over the ceiling. So a mechanic you're going to be seeing a lot, especially in the later game, is spike jumping. Celeste has accurate spikes, meaning that if you're not moving into the spikes, they won't damage you. Which probably sounds really weird. You're like, if you're not moving into them, how are you not touching them? So like, let's say like on this left-hand wall that Msushi is passing with the Kevin block, if you jump up and grab the wall, you're not actually moving laterally into the wall, so the game doesn't count that as you hitting the spikes dead on. It's an interesting little quirk of the game that ends up being used a lot, especially like towards the later areas, to do some pretty nice little skips and just speedy movement.
Yeah, and there's actually, in 1B, there's a few instances where you have to spring through a set of spikes. And so that's where it comes into play. It's kind of designed where, like, once you start going, you don't have an option to, like, turn back. So
yeah, and there's another one, I believe later in this course, it might be in Summit, but where you're, like, jumping up a wall that has a bunch of crystals in the tunnel, and so you end up, like, dashing, grabbing the wall, jumping, dashing, grabbing the wall, etc. It's a pretty nifty little tech. And there are even some occasions where you're able to use it to get on top of a platform that has spikes on top of it to get your dash back. Mm-hmm. And that's really, really cool to see.
All right, so now we should also mention here, this area in particular is kind of like a maze. You have a different route you can choose, either top or bottom. The optimal route is for the top room there. It's kind of difficult because you have to actually hit that bumper, and then while its hitbox is gone, dash into it so you're inside it and get a nice boost off of there, as you've seen on Vlad's screen.
Yeah, pulling that off really well.
Nice move there from Msushi. Also with the bumpers too, we should mention that's probably the closest that we can say is RNG related, just because like depending on where you hit the bumpers is where Madeline is going to traject herself off of. Also, you'll see on Sushi's screen here, if you actually hold the direction away from the bumper as you're about to hit it, you get a nice little boost in distance there. Yep. But sometimes if you know, because they're kind of floating around aimlessly, just kind of minding their own business, you could miss it just by a little bit, and it's enough to send Madeline in a completely different direction.
Yeah, so it's like all 8 of your cardinal and ordinal directions are a little bit forgiving. Like I think they give like an extra couple of degrees off of straight up that will shoot you straight up, but when you start getting in between those zones, that's where things get weird. And if you just get a weird angle, and especially like if the bumper has been drifting, you could easily end up just not actually getting, say, an upright and end up getting just a weird, mostly right bump instead and just go right to death. Vlad with a nice battle and boost here, not failing any of them, hopefully today. Did have one unfortunate fail yesterday.
And I'm looking at the times. It looks like the Msushi is actually now ahead by about a second or two, as both runners are now in the battle and fight. This is arguably one of the most iconic scenes in the game. To give a little backstory, you know, Madeline has had enough with this battling of herself, and she's basically like, you know what, we're gonna let you go. And Madeline's like, that's not how this works. So we are gonna just settle it by, I'm gonna shoot lasers at you, and you're gonna try to dash into me as much as you can. Basically, internal conflict is probably the best way to put it.
And it's interesting because Badeline's entire goal isn't to like kill you or anything. It's literally just to get you to stop climbing the mountain. It's really representative of Madeline's self-doubt and just that part of yourself that just tells you you can't.
And again, this is accompanied by the fantastic Confronting Myself track from Lena Rain. Shout out to Lena.
Yep. Which also, speaking of that soundtrack, we do have for all of you the update that we have some Celeste vinyls and cassettes of that OST, as well as some Steam giveaway codes.
Yes, we do.
So if you subscribe to the GSA channel, you can enter yourself into any of those giveaways. So it would be nice to go ahead and pick up that vinyl of the OST. Would certainly be worthwhile because it's a great soundtrack.
It's a pretty dope vinyl too.
And as a little reminder, for every sub or 500-bit donation, we will end up putting $2 into the prize pools for the games. So the additional money would be going towards general expenses because Twitch has kind of a weird thing with the fact that bits aren't currency, and you can't like directly put bits in the prize pools. So To reiterate, for every sub, we will put $2 into our prize pools.
And then also any direct donations too will go directly into the prize pool for all 3 games. So we've already seen a little bit.
So yeah, being able to get those quality GSA emotes like GSA Fire and GSA GG. Yep.
Yep.
You get those quality emotes, you get to donate to the prize pools, and you could potentially win a Celeste vinyl. Like, it's a win-win-win. You don't see those too often.
Also with the cassettes too, because I do have the cassette myself. It is designed to look like the cassettes in the game, and if it's the one I think it is, the cover is really dope because it's supposed to be like just a different soundtrack. But back in the day, we would take old cassette tapes and record our own mixtapes over them. So it's designed like that.
Yeah.
So like they have Scotch tape covering up like the stuff, and it's a pretty dope cover.
That's really sweet.
All right, so we are getting into Summit here. Sushi first there. Let's see, 233.
Yeah, so really just a couple
really,
of seconds
really close.
away. Very close race.
So it is going to come down to Summit. Now, both winners' Summits were pretty good from yesterday. There was some mishaps here and there, but I think it was just day one nerves was just the big thing. I mean, you're playing on a big stage. You've got an audience. It's not like during the league where you're at home and, like maybe just chilling with your favorite coffee mug and just kind of relaxing. This one you are in front of a live studio audience, and you have the commentators and everybody just right here, including your competitor as well. So it adds a little bit of pressure. But I think once they've gotten through that, it's just a run-of-the-mill now. So I'm expecting to see a little better performance from each runners.
And, I mean, one thing to note, too, is their comfort level certainly looks higher because both these guys have had really nice runs so far. I
Yes.
can't really think of a whole lot other than, mainly just minor mistakes, which we didn't really talk about it before this race, but we made sure to mention it yesterday. Sushi has kind of an outdated PB, has been on PB pace numerous times, but unfortunately lost it to Summit. So we could potentially be seeing one of those PBs during these 3 races today.
Mm-hmm. It's very possible. Nice grabbing that zipper block early. Let's give ourselves a little bit of time here. Sushi is going to be leaving 500 here at 22:02.
And Vlad with that unfortunate spike death there.
I respect the move, playing it safe, doing the intended route there. That's one of the huge things that I have noticed in just like all the races that I've seen with Celeste is if you do mess up on a trick, it's very easy to just get in your head no, I can do this. I need to do this. And sometimes, especially in a race setting, it's just better to just, just take your losses. And
just take the L.
Yeah, just keep going. Because it's okay, you lose 2 seconds or so from the first mistake, but if you failed it 2 or 3 times, it's 6 seconds versus just failing it once and then finishing it,
Yeah.
So.
Oh, yeah. It's that whole sunk cost fallacy, really in effect.
All right, now Sushi in the battle and alley-oop section of 1,000 here. Doing some nice hypers out of these dream blocks.
Yeah, so we did mention earlier that you can hyper out of the dream blocks, but it's even easier here since you have 2 boosts out of the dream blocks instead of 1, which that happened at the very end of Chapter 6. Madeline realizes that she can't get rid of the part of herself that is so doubting and so critical, and so instead, she tries to work together with Madeline, and that results in this double dash mechanic that you see here. And that double dash mechanic ends up adding some pretty interesting other effects, especially with extended hypers and such, since you now have an extra dash in the air no matter what.
Sushi just tackling that triple ultra room very nicely here. Oh no, Flad taking a death here in this first screen. He's going to have to adjust, and then we have the cycles again in play. So due to the fact that it's a 1.5 second time for Madeline to respawn, it does put the player off cycle because the cycle immediately starts as soon as the room is loaded in. So it's just a little fine tuning there, not too much. So we got Sushi now getting into 2000 at 23:46. And a little bit of a lead here, but Flat, wow, barreling through that triple ultra room with those nice ultras there. I keep saying triple ultra, but now they've somehow managed to put I don't know, 5, 6, or maybe even 7 in there. It's hard to count because Madeline is moving so fast.
Yep.
All right, Sushi avoiding that snowball that just
race
sniped him
1 just
out.
completely got bodied. And he, attempts the bound under the terrain, not able to actually. So this is one of those times where you're trying to get back on. Yeah, there he succeeded at it. So he actually technically landed on those spikes, but I think it was like he grabbed the wall just before and then hopped on top. Whatever way that he used to actually get on top of the platform didn't move Madeline downwards when he was touching the spikes. And so thereby, he was able to touch the ground, get his dash back, and move on without dying to the spikes. But going to go ahead and take the Spikes revenge here, it seems. Commentator's Curse in full effect. Maybe a Beetlejuice effect going on, saying spike so much causes them to suddenly gain life.
And then Flad taking the vanilla auto-scroller skip there. Respect the play, because, I mean, if you do take that death, it does cost a little bit of time. Doing a little bit of swag there on this auto-scroller as well. So getting ready here.
And, of course, with the extra berry, interesting enough. Typically, you finish any percent with 2 berries just because they're in your way. It would actually be slower to avoid them.
All right, now Sushi in 2500. We're going to see who's going to go for the... Nope, not opting to do that ultra strat there. Getting that nice hop there. Now, that room in particular, a lot of the runners were just getting caught up. They would end up getting, slammed into the dash block, so...
Yeah, because the dash block just moves so rapidly. And so here, again, more spike jumping. It's just such a cool mechanic to me, because so many games, spikes are just like an insta-death plane, and it's like, but if I didn't slam my hand down on the spikes, how did I get cut?
Yeah. And actually, for that key skip, too, there's a really neat trick that I had learned a little into my speedrun endeavors here. So if you actually if you have a button assigned to jump, and you have that held down, when you try to do that jump, it automatically would just pick up that timing. And it's basically just, it's foolproof, for the most part. You still can run the risk of clipping in and hitting those spikes on the right hand side, but getting that spike jump is it's foolproof by doing that strat. Right now, Sushi into 3,000 here at a 26-22. Nice. I would say he has a nice lead right now, but this is from his experience in doing runs and trying to get PBs and whatnot. This is where his runs have been getting caught up. So we're going to see if that mental block is going to come into play here, as Fladervy is now in the final stretch of 2,500.
Yeah, and Sushi really needs to be on his A game.
Yeah.
To prevent Flat from catching up here. It looks like he is moving pretty steadily, pretty confidently so far.
I'm actually curious to see. Actually, right there, that one in particular, that is the part where he has mentioned has been causing a lot of problems from 23 to 22. He's just not getting enough height and was just falling to his death from there. Nice recovery, too. Oh, my gosh. Let's go. Just keeping himself alive there through this downdraft portion.
That effectively looked intentional, but it was not. You do not want to get that close to the spikes in this section.
He's in the updraft portion here. Now, again, with these sections here, so Fladervy is in the downdraft portion. And for this section, the wind is now pushing into Madeline, so her vertical height...
Oh, man. Did you see that?
I did not. What happened?
So Sushi actually, bopped the ceiling just a little bit and barely was able to actually grab onto the wall before the spikes. He just barely had enough momentum. It was wild. So getting all the way to flag 13...
This section with the coins. Oh, this casual
probably
playthrough,
looks like he has arrhythmia with how much his heart must have skipped beats there. Jeez.
All right, now this is going to be interesting. I want to see if Sushi's actually going to play it safe and get these checkpoints here, or if he's just going to go for the gusto. So he's skipping 10. Now with these checkpoints, they're basically, if you die, this is where you come back to. So a death will push him all the way back. Nope, I take that back. He got flag 9.
Yeah, if you're going to get any of them, flag 9 makes sense, and especially where he landed, I don't think he really had much of a choice.
Yeah. Oh, Flag taking a death here on flag number 13. Again, not getting enough height from that spring. All right, Sushi now in the home stretch here on flag number 4. This one
really nice pace. I think he... maybe, well, it looks like he's looking at a low 29 for this first race time, which is still really respectable.
Yeah, a really good start off here for the second day of pace. Just a few more here. Sushi on flag 1. Oh, no! Just climbing into those spikes there.
Yeah, the way that those are oriented is, as you can see there, like the way that he actually tried routing it, you still come so close to them. And there we go.
There we go. Sushi's going to take the... Looks to take the first one here. It'll be a little close to 29-10. Flad now on flag number 3.
Yeah, unfortunately just doesn't have the time to actually get to the summit before at 29-10. But really stellar first run from Sushi, and especially taking a game off Flad, really nicely done. Certainly, I'm sure many of you would agree that Sushi was a bit of the underdog going into this race, but has certainly proven that he can hold his own against one of these huge players.
Yeah, Flad coming in at 29-23.
Very nice, very good runs from both.
Very strong. I mean, especially with Sushi's performance yesterday against TGH, which is like being on pace throughout, like basically up until Summit. So
Yep. And I mean, I certainly think that this is going to give Sushi a huge confidence boost going into that game too. Because I mean, for you to be able to take a game off of a legend like Flad, the only other human besides Teach with the 27, albeit not with video evidence, unfortunately.
Yeah, but still, like it's huge. It's like just huge confidence boost, and just moving into the second game here as well. It's just nice momentum. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. Just to wait and see.
But Flad too, ultimately a little bit shaky towards the end with some of those interesting deaths, especially in Summit, but still a really solid performance towards the start too.
Absolutely,
So,
just a few hangups there on 3000, like in Flag 13, we saw the deaths there. It's just an easy pickup, and again, it could be nerves. This is a new setting for a lot of the runners playing against each other in a head-to-head environment. So I'm looking to see. I think the big thing though with Fladervy's run is getting Bubs drop on first try. That is a huge confidence boost, especially after yesterday. I feel like that's just something that's not even a factor for him now moving forward. So
yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I believe that first race yesterday, he did have to take 2 tries at it. So
yes,
really nice to go ahead and just get that better start today. And I mean, I'm sure even if he does fail it, he is probably going to be a lot more observant because remember, he did actually get that Bubs drop, I think 4th or 5th try, but then ended up accidentally retrying.
Yeah.
And so I think for sure if we start seeing any sort of fail stacks, he's going to be a lot more attentive just to make sure that he doesn't accidentally extend it even further than he needs to. But what levels are you thinking that these guys are, based on this performance, kind of, maybe thinking about kind of hard going into this next race?
I think Mirror Temple 5B in particular. I think there were some minor hiccups there and some minor hangups. Chapter 3 as well. I felt like I want to say there was a little bit of drama going on with the Ishiro chase, but I'm not 100% sure.
There was, on Sushi's side in particular, he ended up getting kind of a weird pattern, I feel like.
Yeah.
I think he just, like, after that death, he wasn't really, because I mean, Oshiro comes at a consistent time throughout, and so he must just not have been on a cycle he was used to, taking a lot of slowdown there.
Yeah.
And that's another thing, is that even though there weren't a lot of deaths on either side, except for Flat and Summit, there was still just a lot of general time loss from some sloppiness.
Yeah, just some general mishaps with movement, and that Celeste is a very technical game.
Yeah.
So those mishaps are going to happen. It's like just I think it's like over 600 rooms in the game itself.
And it's the skill ceiling is literally infinite. Like, I mean, the task saves 6 minutes just based off of, like, not even using a bunch of really weird glitches. It's just they're able to chain corner boost so effectively.
And just get that momentum
build up
and
so
that
much
movement.
speed. Yeah, and so that's going to be a huge thing going forward for these guys is, knowing that, okay, I have the skills to not take deaths. Let's go ahead and remove the slack now. Let's go ahead and really try to get this movement as clean as possible. And, I don't know, trying to go for that over-optimization, you kind of start riding closer to the razor's edge. So I don't know what we'll be seeing in this next race. If I were one of these guys, I certainly would be thinking to myself, it was a good race, but I played sloppy. Let's do better. But it's going to be hard to balance that doing better with going a bit too far and ending up making even more mistakes.
Yeah, definitely. I think Sushi would want to go just a little faster, but I think he's all right with the pace that he has. But I know that he probably feels that he's capable of doing more and getting more out of it. So, just overall, just try to tighten it up. I know a good tip that actually I've heard Teach talk about is sometimes he feels like he goes too fast. So it's good to just kind of slow it down just a little bit and not get ahead of yourself. So we'll see if that's going to come into play as we get ready for race number 2 here.
Yep.
Runners getting back from their nice break. The break is really important too. I mean, like, especially playing on keyboard for Celeste, I tried it at some point and it was just like, nope.
Yeah, it's
just
very,
like,
very intense on the hands.
It's very
that's
strenuous on the hands. Like, it's really rough. So
you got to make sure your setup is really nice and ergonomic. You don't want to have any sort of pressure on your wrists. And of course, shout outs to the Smashboard stretches. I'm sure those would really help too.
And just getting that together, and it's just like, you got to rest them up because it's just like it's so intense. And you're just, I'm curious, like, how many key presses actually is in one 80% run?
Oh, I'm sure there's tons. And
yeah.
Like, the alternative, too, is, like, all that just ridiculous D-pad movement that Teach has to go through on a
Oh, yeah, definitely.
controller. That's got to be pretty wild. I wonder, with hypers and such, if Teach actually ends up, like, mainly using diagonals more so than the cardinal directions.
I would say yes. I know from my own experience, because I'm a controller player as well, I have burned through DualShock 4s. I have burned through so many just from constant, like, hyper dashes. I mean, the closest thing I can do compare it to is like using a DualShock 4 to play Tekken.
Oh,
because you're just constantly using the diagonals there and making sure you have them. So,
and real quick, shout outs to Sony for figuring out how to make a decent D-pad. Like, I don't get what it is with other companies, but, like, you don't have to have separate mechanical switches or anything. All you have to do is, like, separate the individual buttons. Like, I don't know what it is that they've done with the DualShock 4 that just makes it so much better, but, like, I've never had a misdirection on it. And on any Nintendo D-pad, it's really easy for me to get misdirections, especially, like, the Pro Controller D-pad. Like, it's, oh, man.